welcome back to a brand new episode of Head Over Heels. My name is Maggie, your host, as usual, still the same face, same person. Well, today we have a very special guest that I have been waiting and wanting to speak to for a really long time. Was supposed to get her on for the first season. We didn't get the chance to, but here she is. I'm really, really happy. She's a hustler, a leader, someone who's just impeccable with style. Evidently, those of you who are on YouTube, you can see how she looks like already. Just an all-rounder, superwoman. Of course, our guest today is not only a mother, supermom of two, but also the founder of a jewelry brand that I'm pretty sure you've heard of, if not already own a piece or two, because I'm already wearing one myself. Guys, please welcome Jenn Low, founder of Wanderlust Co. Hey, girl.
Hi, Maggie. Super excited to be here today.
Yeah. How was that intro? Did I pass the intro?
It was okay. It wasn't too bad. I felt like you could have really talked me up more, though. Like you were being not. You could be more complimentary. You should have been, really.
I'll try again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
but you
give
know
another shot.
Guys, this is Jenn. You know what? You are so bubbly in person. I didn't quite expect that. Because I think we've not actually properly had a sit down before. I don't think
actually,
we have.
I'm racking my brain.
We have not.
I feel like we have.
No, we don't. We have not.
Okay, noted. Coffee date next week.
But yeah, just loving your energy so much right now. I mean, just by the introduction, you guys can already hear it. But quick catch up though. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like everyone is going through something or having a hard time at the moment with everything that's going on. But with all things considered, I have to say I'm good. I should have just said I'm good.
Guys, see? I told you, love it. But no, I think love, another thing though, like pandemic. Obviously, we are still in a freaking pandemic, guys. I'm so sick of it, to be very honest, but it's okay. We got to do what we got to do.
You, me, and everyone else.
Yes. How was it like navigating through a pandemic? Being you, a businesswoman, founder, mom, wife? Tell us.
So I think last year, I think everyone probably was taken for a turn. Like all the things that kind of happened and took place globally, right? And exactly what you said, like just juggling work. You know, I have close to 30 people working for me, and I'm very thankful to say we didn't retrench, we didn't cut salaries. We really like held together, banded together, and kind of pushed through, grew through it. Two kids at home, so teaching, having online learning at home hasn't been easy. And then being sort of at home 24/7, my husband also, like all that sort of stuff. And it does get to you. And I remember running a town hall for my team with my team. And we did a session where, okay, everyone share your deepest frustrations. And of course, some people went for it. Some people needed to hear other people go for it. And then they dug in. And then at the end of it all, I think one of the things I said to my team that really resonated for myself and them was that we're not going through this alone. Everyone is going through this. And so I think I said to my team, I understand it's hard work from home. I understand communication can be down. I understand wires can get crossed sometimes. But the whole world is doing this. So if you commit mentally in your head and you have a positive relationship with challenges as best you can, then you're going to get through it, because that's the only way to move forward is to push through, right?
Exactly. And I love that. And I can't help but to also notice, obviously I already know that you have an Australian accent. So we would like to know your background. You're Malaysian though.
I am Malaysian. I'm so Malaysian.
Yeah.
I am currently thinking about lunch. And I was like, asam laksa or nasi lemak.
Love it, love it.
I'm super Malaysian, but I spent quite a few years in Australia.
Right.
And the first 4 years of my career was actually in fashion in Australia. And then I got together with my then boyfriend, now husband. Then boyfriend. I was obviously already like, you know, married to him in my head. I was like, I shall trick this man into this. But then boyfriend, now husband. So it worked out.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Praise the Lord.
But I actually moved back to Malaysia because of him.
Oh, really?
And that was the year that I also sort of started my business. Yeah.
Of course, before I get any guest in, I would always do research about them. And a lot of articles kind of start started from the bedroom of an apartment in Australia
Right.
to having a brand being recognized globally, being worn by names like Kendall Jenner, Selena Gomez, Jessica Alba.
Very good memory, huh?
Right. I gotta be, right? I'm a host, right? But yeah, so you started off in the four walls of your own bedroom in Australia.
I did. And I think, if you observe, let's say in the last 2 years with the ease of starting a brand because of social media and Shopify and all the tools, most people start businesses from their bedrooms, right?
It's true.
I think when I did it back in 2009, it wasn't the norm.
Yeah.
So it's now become like such a tagline, but I almost feel shy sometimes because I feel like a lot of people have dreams. A lot of people start at home.
Yeah.
And I'm just like everyone else. That's how I started.
Yeah. But like you did it, like you said, in 2009 before like things like Instagram, Facebook was even a thing like it is now.
Yeah.
So how different was it back then?
Oh, so different. Like this year we turn 11 years old as a brand in September.
Birthday.
Thank you. We did 10 years last year through a pandemic. And I think I sometimes, just like everyone else, get so caught up with issues, problems, and I forget how much I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love digital marketing. I love branding. I love storytelling. I love creating campaigns. And I love seeing how people consume. We crunch so much data in our business. I would say 80 to 90% of all decisions are made based on data in our business, including what font to use, what color, how long a necklace chain should be. Do we ramp up marketing in France or ads in Switzerland versus UAE? What's the conversion?
Wow.
And we measure everything. And I actually, when I first decided in my bedroom in Australia to start a brand, never did I ever imagine that I would love data so much. And yeah, so I think what I'm trying to say is like, I think it gets hard sometimes, and you just have to remember, if you do 10 things in a day or 10 things in a week, 3 to 4 of them are not going to be so fun, and then 6 of them are going to be things you really love, and you got to harness the energy from those 6 things and just let the 4 things go that aren't so fun and are hard.
Love it. And we're only in 10 minutes into our episode, guys. So sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of it. But of course, I do have so many more questions for you, Jen. Before we get deep, right? Before we dig real deep, I want to know, what keeps you up every day?
What keeps me up? Like keeps me from sleep?
No, keeps you from going every day. What keeps you going every day?
What keeps me going? I was like, my son, of course, he's 2. I don't get much sleep. Yes.
Realistically, yes, right?
I'm Sephora's #1 checkout person for concealer. What gets me going? To be honest, it's different things every day. And I'm sure it's the same for you because you're busy, you're accomplished, you do so many things. Sometimes I look at some of the content you create and I think, oh my God, that's amazing. And you manage to keep it so real. And I think if ever anything, that's probably something we both have in common. I think, just being true to yourself. And in that moment, depending on the project, different things motivate you, different things encourage you. Sometimes it could be my kids who encourage me. Sometimes, like on the way here for the podcast, I didn't actually get to see my husband this morning. We left at different times. And he sent me a text. He said, good luck for the podcast. Aww. Just be yourself and you do great.
Yeah.
And I just wrote back, I'm so grateful for you. So I think different things encourage you at different times. And I think just keeping things real, which is what you do so well too.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think being authentic, being real, sometimes seems so hard to do. But, you know, but once you get the hang of it, it just comes naturally.
Yeah.
You just know. Of course, like I said, I do a lot of research, and this is quite out there. Your IG bio, something that captured me last night for some reason. I don't think I've
last night in the thick of things.
Yeah, I mean, we've been following each other for a while now, but I never really kind of pay attention to your IG bio.
The fine text.
Yeah, the fine text. Exactly. See, specificity. It says, advocating joy in ordinary moments, being open and trusting the flow of the universe. I love that so much. I never noticed it there. I'm sorry. So I realized...
never read properly.
I only see your stories, so I don't see your bio. But yeah, point is, I realize you're very, very big with words, with the things you say. the things you speak about, how does that translate into your life with this particular statement on your IG bio? What made you put it there?
So I think like growing up, I had very traditional Malaysian Chinese parents. Okay, and I'm sure a lot of people tuning in can relate, or not. I hope you guys can relate. And I was the first, like, eldest of 4 kids, right? So, and actually my parents like started out very humbly. So I actually had quite a tough childhood. Yeah. And my dad actually started out his business actually as a driver. And he used to work for his dad, and eventually he grew his business. And I think at a point before he sold that business, he had like 250 trucks. And he really thrived with his transportation business. Yeah. And then he evolved it into like oil and gas and different things. I would say actually that a lot of the challenges I experience or watch my parents experience really inspires me today. And that's why sometimes when things get really hard, just like anyone else, I would bitch and moan, have a cry, have a pity party for myself. But then I find it quite easy to pick myself up and go again, because I feel like it's exactly what I said at the start of the episode, like having a positive relationship with challenges is important. That doesn't mean having fake positivity or toxic positivity. I don't advocate that. Yeah. But it means like, look, shit's going to happen. Yeah. Like things aren't going to go to plan. That's basically life. Yeah. It isn't the universe out to get you. It isn't someone trying to bring you down. It isn't everyone against you. You don't have to be, in defensive mode all the time, but it's basically things just happen. So like, I think cultivating that things are going to be okay eventually. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And really trying to, as much as possible, to believe in that. Yeah. I guess the first part of my bio that you're saying, like advocating joy in the little moments, I think having children, my 2 kids, really has opened up my eyes. Yeah. And I know we're going to dive deeper into motherhood and how that all blends with being an entrepreneur and all that sort of stuff. But just touching on it briefly, I think my kids have really shown me how much we rush about life with blinkers on. We have our heads buried in a phone, and we forget to like take check on like little things. Yeah. And I think the world has obviously come to a bit of a standstill because we all can't travel, and we love travel, right? Yeah. But think about when you have had a timeout, you were able to travel, and you're in this tiny back street in Shibuya in Japan, and you're with Joe and you stumble upon a little coffee shop, and you're cold, and you've removed your gloves, and you're holding onto this hot cup of coffee, and the smell coming from that. And I think evoking your senses and kind of taking that moment to be like, oh, it's so nice, this cup is so warm. Yeah. My fingers are so cold. Yeah. Or this coffee smell is waking me up. But it's just like opening up your senses to little things, even if you could only do it for 5 minutes a day, is what makes us all feel alive. Yeah. And I think modern society and Facebook and Instagram, my favorite apps, by the way, but they have reprogrammed us to forget about the things we need as a human being to feel joy inside of us. Yeah. And that's what I mean when I say find joy in the little things, right? Yeah. And that doesn't mean you're, I guess, perfect, right? You're like a monk, or like you're constantly meditating. It just means take 2 to 3 minutes out. What makes you take, like, what makes you feel a bit more alive, like be in that moment, be present. And I think I learned that through my children.
Yeah. Agree completely. Like, I think my therapist did tell me before, like I'm such an overthinker. I get anxious all the time. But the truth is we can't really know what the future is going to bring. We can't change the past. So all we can do really is focus on the now, right? Which is like exactly what you mentioned. So it brings me to my next question. You are an amazing mother. You are
sometimes.
I love the disclaimer coming in. You are a team leader, but the thing is, there are people out there who have said to me that you can't be a great mom and a great entrepreneur, businesswoman at the same time. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree?
This is going to be controversial, but I agree and disagree with that statement. Yeah. So, a little bit of background story. So, Luke, my husband, and I were together for, I want to say like 6 years, married 6 years,
6 years.
before, 5 years plus before we decided to have kids. And actually, in large part, actually the resistance was from me.
Right.
Because I think I just felt like exactly what you just said. I can't be like, how am I going to have time? At that point, I was like, my schedule is so full. And I think now, you know, with Olivia, my daughter, Olivia's 4, and Oscar is turning 2 years old next week. So 2 kids. And I want to say you will find the time. And I want to say that one of the things that I never expected about being a mom is how much you would expand your world to include all the things that matter and how you have had that strength and ability in you all along. You don't need someone else to tell you what to do. You don't need someone else to judge you. You don't need all of that externality. If you silence your mind and you think about the kind of family you want to have, the kind of wife you want to be, the kind of woman you want to be, the kind of mother you want to be, and you spend some time with yourself, you're going to figure out the answers. The other thing is every woman is different.
Yeah.
So when you say great, what is great? I have friends who are full-time housewives who are so in love with their lives.
Yeah.
And such doting, devoted wives. Like her husband will go off to work and she'll have like 2 different herbal things packed in jars and lunchbox packed. Her kids have labeled lunchboxes. She sits and does like, and I admire this friend of mine. I don't label her as just a housewife, you know, like she's so good. Like her lunchboxes look like gourmet meals. So she's just put that upon her. Like I have a few mummy friends like that, in fact. And one of my favorite mummy friends, she's a Cambridge graduate. You don't get any smarter than that. And she's a full-time housewife. And then I have like Vivi Yusuf, you know, like obviously everyone knows Vivi, founder of Duck, founder of Fashion Ballet, 3 kids, also thrives. Right. And I think there's a lot in the media now about inclusivity, diversity, acceptance. And I think we're really only coming to that point in modern society where we're actually understanding that definition of what inclusivity and allowing people to be really means. Because understanding the concept of something is different from practice, right?
For sure.
And I think it's my long way around of saying it is very possible to be a great mother and a great boss, leader, or entrepreneur at the same time, so long as you spend some time with yourself to understand what is great to you. What does that mean to you?
Your definition of great.
Your definition of great, not society's definition of great, because then you're constantly chasing something that's not for yourself. So you can be a full-time housewife and be great. Or you could be like, I guess, I can be me and I could feel today I'm doing a great job. Or you could be Vivi and you could feel like you're doing a great job. But then people like Vivi and me who have careers and have kids who, and for some people they might label as, oh, they seem to have it all, can also have a bad day and feel like we're crappy mothers or crappy bosses or we're not enough. So I think it is all possible depending on how you look at it and your definition of great and how you make peace with yourself.
I love that. Finding your meaning of greatness and own it and live it, right? And it's different for everybody. So it's true, comparison is the thief of joy. And but do you find yourself comparing?
Of course.
And how do you deal with it? Because I, obviously, just like everyone else, we do, right? It's a human nature to compare.
And I love actually some of your recent work where you've really called it out. And I feel like you're being vulnerable about your process of becoming. So you're not saying I'm there. You're saying I'm in that process. I'm sharing this journey with you. Like I want to be more comfortable with myself. I'm not quite there yet, but here's me being open about my process of being more comfortable. And I find that inspiring. I think we are now kind of past that age of like, look at all my perfect pictures. Please envy my life and think that my life looks like this all the time. I think we're now in that phase where here are some perfect pictures of me, but here are some that aren't because this is life.
Exactly.
You know, like this is life. This morning I was coming here, getting ready to come here, and my son threw up on me.
Oh no!
Right? And I was wearing this blazer. I had it all planned. And if you look very closely, you can zoom in on my t-shirt and you can see that it's not very well ironed. And so I put it on and I was like, it's not very well ironed in my head. And then I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I need to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
And so that moment of brief insecurity where it's like, people are going to notice my t-shirt is not ironed on Maggie's podcast. And then I'm like, are you crazy? This is crazy talk. Left ear, right ear, left ear. And I'm like, okay, guts to go.
Yeah.
You know?
To be honest, I didn't even notice until you pointed it out. But now I can't stop looking at it. But it's okay.
Of course, zoom in by all means. Make a TikTok. but that's my point.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is in our heads.
It's true.
And so going back to when you said insecurity and comparison, like, I think it's okay to be insecure. I think it's okay to compare. But what I would like to see more of, and I'm actually very passionate about this topic, especially being a mom, right? I feel like the education system and teachers in school should start having conversations about building self-awareness.
Yeah.
So we all different, right?
Yeah.
Different things trigger us, different things motivate us. And I hope we have now evolved past shame. Like you shouldn't feel ashamed for feeling what you feel, right? So I think the best thing we can do actually is to be more self-aware about why we are comparing. Right? Because you're going to compare.
Yeah.
So dig deep into why you are comparing.
Yeah.
Harness that truth for yourself and create a new goal. You know, so if you're looking at someone who's super, like, so I obviously have had 2 kids. I don't have the perfect body. And I can look at someone in a hot bikini with abs and be like, why is she posting that? She's a slut. Or like, she's asking for it. Like, I could think that. Or if I thought that, which I really don't think that. Yeah. But if I think that, and then I start comparing, I need to dig a bit deeper, spend 1 minute in my own head and be like, why am I judging her? Is it because I don't feel happy about my body? What am I unhappy about my body? Or is it because she's so confident, you know, and I don't dare post a photo of myself in a bikini for fear of being judged, and her picture is triggering me because she doesn't seem afraid of being judged. So I think it's okay to compare, it's okay to judge, it's okay to be human, but I think people should do the inner work of digging deeper and building self-awareness as to why they're doing something. And I actually believe the world would be a better place if people were simply more self-aware. You don't need to change who you are. You don't need to change your thoughts. You just need to understand why you're thinking a certain way and then decide for yourself whether you want to have a new goal. So if that's triggering using the bikini picture example, then is it time for you to be like, okay, I need to get my fitness game back on?
Yeah.
And that's like a positive twist to okay, now I'm doing something about all that negative self-talk.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I think about comparison.
No, I agree completely. Like a lot of the times we compare so much when we don't ask questions. We're unaware, therefore we compare.
Yeah.
But like you said, once you start digging deeper and start asking the whys and be curious with your emotions and your feelings, it'll make a ton of a difference. So let's give it a try today to those of you who are listening. If at any point while you're scrolling on your Instagram, you're feeling like, okay, I feel like shit, why do I not look like her? In the wise words of Jenn, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah. Right? And you do this a lot. I feel like what I love about you is quite a few times you've been unafraid to stand up for a situation, whether I remember the whole episode with the ad that was about the skin color, and you were quite vocal about what it was about. And when people would pull up certain points you didn't think of, you were happy to say, yeah, actually, thank you for sharing. I didn't think of that. And I think we need more of that. Simply that, people speaking their truth, people being open to learning, and people understanding why they're feeling a certain way. And I think you do that very well.
Thank you. But today is not about me.
Of course. This is all about me.
Exactly, about Jenn Low,
so
not
go
Maggie
back to
Wang.
me.
All right. But yeah, I do want to know, you gave a really insightful and refreshing take on what we've just talked about. But what is the hardest truth about motherhood that you've experienced so far? How old is Olivia?
Olivia is 4.
Okay, 4 years.
And Oscar is 2, yeah. And I'm 37 for the record. I think the hardest truth about being a mom that no one talks about is how messy it is. Yeah.
It doesn't look like it on your...
It does. I did all these stories on construction. I did all these stories also on Oscar's surgery, which I know we're going to talk about a bit more. But I think motherhood is messy. And I know that to every you know, very goal-seeking, perfectionist, type A woman, because I'm like that, right? Woman who's tuning in, they're like, okay, now postponing that by 3 more years after listening to Jenn say that. But I think like people who know me really well know that I'm very organized, and I like, you know, like to know where things are going to land and what's going to happen when, and I plan my calendar like 2 weeks in advance.
Yes, I know that.
And I'm very strict about what I allow into my time. But at the same time, so it's very contradicting for me to say motherhood, the hardest challenge is messy. And I guess going back to your question earlier when you said trust the flow of the universe, I think part of me having that in my bio is probably just like a reminder to myself.
Self-reminder.
It is, yeah. And I think what I'm trying to say when I say it's messy is that it's unpredictable. You'll go through things you've never experienced. You'll be out of your comfort zone. Because every month they're changing as a baby, and like some they fall sick, or like their personalities develop, and or like I have a very good nanny, and sometimes I have to manage her, and then she has an issue which I don't expect, and then I have to tell her my preference of how to do something with my kids. So I think it's very much like running a business. Like you don't quite know what's going to come your way.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest, hardest truth about motherhood, just like entrepreneurship, is that it's going to get messy. So you're going to have to mentally have to be okay with things changing and going with the flow and pivoting and having a growth mindset. Like you're going to not just read these things as like funky buzzwords, you know, like urban buzzwords, but you're going to have to start embodying it if you want to fit all these things into your jar.
Yeah. And speaking of, you know, things getting messy, recently, not quite recent, he's really, I know your baby boy, Oscar, he was admitted to the hospital.
Yeah.
Are you okay to share the story?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like what happened, and like maybe just walk us through it.
Yeah. So Oscar was 17 months old when we first found out that he needed surgery. We found a brain cyst in his head. And one of my most asked questions on Instagram is, how did you find out? Babies actually have routine pediatrician visits. So at every visit, the nurses will always take their height and weight and measure certain body circumferences. Yep. So for the head, the skull, they always measure the diameter of the skull. So for about 3 to 4 months before we confirmed that he had a brain cyst, his doctor noticed that his head was growing larger than his BMI.
Right.
Yeah, so it wasn't off the charts. And also he didn't have behavioral anomalies or delayed sort of growth. So we couldn't tell. But so it was kind of growing a bit more. And then at one point, as you tracked it on the graph, it went off the chart a little bit.
Okay.
So at that point, the doctor ordered an MRI. And of course, with the MRI, we found a brain cyst that's quite large. So if a baby's head is about this big, it was about this much, maybe like a 50-cent coin, or a bit bigger than a 50-cent coin.
That's huge.
So we decided quite quickly he needed surgery to excise the cyst, to remove the cyst.
Yeah.
So something like 20,000 babies in the US
Okay.
are born with brain cysts.
Okay.
And something like half of them require surgery.
Okay.
So you require surgery if the midline of the brain has shifted.
Okay.
Yeah, and it happened a little bit for him. I won't get too much into detail because I know far too much about this stuff. I actually have had so many moms PM me to ask me a lot of technical things, and when I have time, I would respond. But going back, so he had the first surgery, and then unfortunately, 6 weeks later, we realized that he didn't just have the cyst. He also, his body has a condition where he was producing too much CSF, like cerebral spinal fluid, the fluid in the brain. So then there was still liquid in there, although we removed the cyst itself. So if you excise the bag, then the liquid's still in there.
Right.
Then the midline has still shifted. If you take away nothing from this conversation, for those of you tuning in, it's that our brain has two parts. There is a midline. The midline has to always be centered. Anything that happens in your head that moves the midline is not good for you. Yep. Yeah, basically in a gist of it. Yeah. And if the midline shifts, that's when you need surgery, in a nutshell. So we then needed that second surgery, and I think that second surgery really caught me off guard. Because it's one thing during the time of COVID to put your child into hospital and he was in ICU for a week and had tubes running out of his helpless body and all that sort of stuff. But then like to be told 6 weeks later that, look, it didn't really make the problem go away. It helped us notice that it's now this other thing, which they couldn't have tested for, you know, because it's so intricate, right? So second surgery, but thankfully last week, we just went for an MRI and we actually had to put in a shunt implant, and the shunt implant is actually helping drain the excess fluid into his tummy. So I think what I've realized from this whole thing, not as if COVID hasn't already taught so much to all of us, but what I've realized from this whole thing is, you know, you just have to be prepared for the inevitable. And people talk about staying strong and staying calm, but until something happens to the people you love the most. What was less important was my reaction to the situation, and what was more important was for me to stay calm. Not because I'm so calm and so pleased with the situation, but because my son needed me to be clear-headed. And I think, you know, I guess touching back to one of your earlier questions, having children and then balancing that with like being a boss and being a team leader and all that sort of stuff. I think kids actually amidst the messiness of having children, they create more clarity for you than you would ever comprehend before you have children. That is like, for me, the one statement, the one depth of understanding that no one could have explained to me before I had kids. And so Oscar's surgery only heightened my awareness of how clear I am about what I need to do and who I need to be as a person. Because it's not just me saying to Maggie on this podcast, I think this, but it's important that these little people see that mommy says this and she believes it, she lives it, she does it. And having children creates more clarity for you amongst the messiness than anyone could tell you.
Yeah, because obviously you also had to be there for your daughter, Olivia.
Oh, I was still doing conference calls from the from the hospital.
And was she still on
school? My daughter was still in school, and thankfully I have a nanny who's been with me for 8 years.
Okay,
Emma, bless her. She's actually a single mom. She has 3 boys. And I think even having someone like that in my life is very grounding. Because sometimes, you know, we get caught up in our industry in fashion, and you come home and you have this silly problem in your head that's taking over your energy, and then I see her so patiently feeding my son who's still having a bandage on his head. She's a million miles away from her kids. She hasn't seen them for like this whole time. And then my kids are right under my nose. I have her helping me. And I think it's little things like that. And going back to like finding joy in the little things, finding meaning in the little things, because I don't know, I feel like it's important to stay grounded to this simple things, especially when we get stressed. Yeah,
for sure. And of course, like you talked about managing priorities just now, you know, how you do that. But when it comes to managing expectation, I feel that's something completely different. That's something that sometimes is out of our control, how people feel about us. And I'm sure with everything that has happened with, you know, Oscar being in hospital then, and then you still had to show up for work, and obviously you had Olivia and then your husband, just things happening. How do you manage people's expectations, especially when they just want your time and you can't humanly give them all of them?
So I would say actually I am very bad at managing expectations for myself.
Okay.
I'm honestly still learning. I think I'm quite good at managing other people's expectations. Only because I think I'm quite a clear communicator, and I'm quite open. So I would happily say to someone why I can't do something, or like I don't really understand sometimes when people make things up. Like I'm quite open to be like, I can't do this because my daughter's having a swim class. So I used to be very insecure about things like that. Like, oh, am I a bad? You mean? No, saying no to work because I have to do something personal. Because I used to feel like that's very selfish. And actually it's post-Oscar surgery where it's like, wait, hold up. Why am I apologizing for wanting to take my daughter to a swim class on a weekday at 4 o'clock? Even like, why do I feel bad? Why am I feeling bad? You know, it's my right. it's my time, you know, like, and I also work at 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. sometimes clearing off emails or responding to things, right?
Evidently, as you guys have heard or seen if you're on YouTube, Jenn is such a passionate person. You are so full of energy and passion, just good vibes all around. But I want to know, like you said, I don't know if you said this before, I lost track, but do you wear your heart in your sleeves? Or are you a very logical, structured, rational person when it comes to making difficult decisions?
I think I'm a mixed bag. And I think most people I know, and I feel quite lucky to have like a lot of very talented friends who are from different industries and all seem to like be juggling different schedules. Like, I think we're all a bit of everything, right? And earlier when you said overthinking, I do relate to that, right? I think I do wear my heart in my sleeve, but what I've learned over the years is when that is necessary. And I use the word necessary because I've had to actually manage myself out of certain behavioral tendencies. So we're all a product of parenting, right? And my mom is very anxious and very nervous. And being the eldest kid of 4, I always sort of had to, you know, sometimes parent my younger siblings. Because my mom would be quite nervous and anxious. And then my dad, on the other hand, is like the complete opposite.
Level-headed.
Very level, quite unemotional, very sort of like factual, very, very, very strong, very tenacious. So I think in my early years of business, and especially being a people manager, I was on the extreme both ends.
Right.
Either very overly compassionate and overcompensating, or probably overly rigid, overly just rigid, right? And overly control freak and all that sort of stuff. And I think I evolved. Yeah. I think I got to this point where I realized that, wait, I'm these two things. So I think that's why I'm saying it starts with awareness. It starts with understanding, wait, who am I? What are my tendencies? Why am I doing this? Where did it come from? Where am I going? How do I want to be? And then I got to that juncture and then I realized, okay, it's a waste of time and energy if I'm too emotional or too reactionary to X, Y, and Z topics. Yeah. It's important for ABC, not X, Y, Z. So I started to edit. And so, you know, like Michelle Obama, I love her book Becoming, because becoming to me is a process of you're on the way. So with social media, we've been so obsessed with like arriving at a destination, having the perfect house, perfect wedding, perfect this, perfect that, perfect everything. And the concept of becoming for me is you're on the way. Because sometimes you get here, right? You get there. And then I'm sure you've had this happen to you. You get here and then you've moved the bloody goalpost. Yeah. So you were like, I want to get here. If I'm here, I'll be so happy. Yeah. And I remember I had this one particularly difficult moment in my 3rd year of business. And I was literally just whinging, moaning, and so unhappy and so stressed and so frazzled at the dinner table. It was just my husband and I. And I was like crying. I was like, it's so hard. Nobody understands. And then he looked at me and he said, do you remember at one point when you said, I just want to have 100 orders a month? Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And then crying, why are you not listening? Why are you talking about this? Like in my head, I'm like,
why are you bringing it back?
Why are you bringing this up? He's like, do you remember when you said, I would be the happiest person on earth if I got 100 orders a month? Yeah. And he said, at what point did you forget that you now have all these new problems because you have that? And so you trade problems, right? You trade problems. And so going back to that, like, you get here and then sometimes you're almost there and then you're like, now I want to go here. And then you're almost there and then you're like, now I want to go there. So I think my whole thing about self-awareness is just, it's okay to move the goalpost. It's okay to feel unsatisfied sometimes. So it's okay to feel like you're not quite there. Like, but just be aware if you're moving the goalpost, that you're constantly moving your goalpost, and love that about yourself, because at least you will have a sense of gratitude for being ambitious.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. I like that whole thing you mentioned about trading problems.
Yep.
And a lot of the times where we set a goal for ourselves and once we get there, sometimes we forget how we got there.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's too many other things that's just happening around us. And Which brings me to this next question, which I kind of missed out earlier, but I do want to bring it back. Guilt that we did want to talk about, right? You talk to us about how you split your time between your work and your life, your family, your loved ones. Have you ever been put in a position where, how do I put this? You have to choose between the both, and has guilt ever been a thing? Do you feel guilty?
I feel guilty all the time. Okay. I feel guilty all the time. And I think I don't want to I guess generalize, but I feel like as a product of Asian parenting, we're so good at apologizing for everything that has nothing to do with us.
That's me.
Right. I'm so sorry for this. I'm so sorry for that. I'm so sorry for this. I'm sorry for that. Yes, all the time.
Yes.
And so I read this thing on Instagram. I follow a few more new age psychologists and therapists on Instagram. And one of them put up this cute little easy to understand flow chart. And on one side it goes, I'm sorry this, I'm sorry that, a whole list. And then on the other side, rather than saying I'm sorry for being late, even if it's 2 minutes, you can say, thank you so much for waiting for me. I was caught up with this. So I think it's changing your language.
Choosing your words.
Being
mindful with them.
Yeah, but then also just changing your relationship with guilt.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it's, again, it for me, there's no perfection. There's no because then you start feeling guilty for feeling guilty.
Yeah.
And then a problem. Then you're having this conversation with someone about why you shouldn't be feeling guilty and how actually that person said this and that, which was what triggered you to be guilty. But then after that conversation, you then go home to your boyfriend or husband. You're like, so I told this person this, but I probably shouldn't have talked about it. Now I'm guilty about talking to her about feeling guilty about that person. So then it's just this never-ending cycle.
Yes.
So I just feel like we need to change our relationship with guilt. Yeah, so you're going to feel guilty, but the moment you have that awareness of first of all, it's okay to feel guilty. Second of all, it's normal to feel guilty.
Yeah.
Third of all, you can now move on.
Yes.
So then you're changing your relationship with guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With guilt can also comes compassion for yourself and the people around you. I think they can come hand in hand.
Yeah.
And not just guilty is bad, therefore I shouldn't feel guilty. And I think that is something that we can all pick up and learn. And it's easier said than done, to be honest, because when the feeling hits you, it's unpleasant. Oh man, I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
But the work here is really dig deep and ask yourself questions, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow, we've covered quite a bit. Speaking of which, just now we did talk about so many things. You being compassionate, you being passionate, and wearing heart in your sleeve, logical, guilt, all that stuff. But what about being vulnerable? And my question here is, what does being vulnerable means to you? And how do you learn to embrace it in your life?
So I don't know if you heard of Brené Brown?
Yes, I love her.
I know. I'm such a fangirl.
Yes, me too.
I'm such a fangirl. Yeah, I have 2 of her books on my bedside, which I haven't read. I'm feeling guilty. No, bring yourself back, Jen. Bring yourself back. So I love Brené Brown, and it was really her work that opened up this whole topic of being open and being vulnerable to me. And I think one of her most famous little taglines that really caught my attention is clear is kind, full stop. 3 words, clear is kind. And she obviously does a lot of work with businesses and teams. And so I think I really want to share this today because I notice in the Malaysian work culture, being open and honest and vulnerable about truths at work is quite rare.
Yeah, not as appreciated as you would think.
And it's rare because I think it's not very Asian to be confronting, and people associate telling the truth or calling something out as confronting versus you're just being honest or you're just being clear. So when Brené Brown kind of started this campaign, I think 2 years ago, Clear is Kind, it really resonated for me because I did spend quite a number of years in Australia. And when I first moved back, I think I was really thrown off by how many people would make up things, but they would all be white lies. So I would know that it wasn't intentional. It's nothing to be taken personally.
Yeah.
But it would be like, oh, I can't do this because this person, this. But they wouldn't really just be like, I need more time. Yeah. Or like if you dug deep enough, it would be like, look, I really respect you as my manager. I know that this project is important to you. So I want to do something that, you know, I want to create something that would be really impressive for you to review. So I think I'm going to need a bit more time.
Yeah.
No one says that at work.
Hardly anyone.
No one, first of all, wants to say, I want to create really good work that's going to be really impressive. But everyone wants to do that. But no one says that. That's the first point. The second point is everyone always like, either they go into this like negative guilt cave where it's like, oh, I don't have enough time, I have too much to do, I don't have enough time. And then they go into this like self-wallowing thing and then they have negativity towards their work. But no one has positive self-talk internally about why they care so much. It's because you want to do good work. It's because you respect your boss and you think they know so much, or your manager and they're so experienced, they've seen 1,000 pitches, so you want to create something that will blow their mind. Yeah. But why doesn't someone just say that? So when Brene Brown said clear is kind, like for me, it really resonated because like how often, you know, for me, I do a lot of reviews, especially over the years, right? How often do I sit down in front of someone and I don't want to be a bitch boss. I don't want to be like not nice. So I end up saying all these things that doesn't really mean anything. Yeah. It's not useful to this 24-year-old person who is trying to grow in their career and doesn't know a lot of things just yet. If I just go, yeah, no, that was good. Like, yeah, keep it up. You know, all this generic stuff, I hate that shit. Keep up the good work. What does that mean? How about when you were in that presentation, I noticed how confident you were. Yeah. And I've seen you grow in confidence since your first presentation. And I really value that. Say things like that. Be clear. Don't give people generic stuff you don't mean because they expect you to say something. That. Stop saying stuff people expect you to say. Yeah. Stop saying shit that doesn't matter. Like that frustrates me quite a bit. Yeah. And that's why I think like I really wanted to address that, because in the Malaysian work culture, I see too many managers and organizations and company cultures that perpetuate this. And I don't mean like be intense all the time and be specific all the time 24/7, but I mean when it matters. Right? If you're having a one-on-one sit down with someone and you're signing off on a quarterly goal, like the next quarter's goals and projects, like be real with that person. Like I was just speaking to someone from my team 2 days ago and we're trying to craft out collabs for Q4 this year and Q1 next year. And she said to me, okay, so for this, do you want me to reach out to this person? And so the traditional boss mentality would be like, of course you do lah, then me. But for me, what I actually said to her is like, look, I know that if I text this person, it will get done, but I really want to give you a chance to step into it. And I'm here for you all the way. If you need something or if you feel a bit stuck or a bit unsure about some of the facts, I'm here. But I want you to pitch it and I want you to win that pitch. Yeah. So like say things like that, you know, because this is what the next generation needs. Like people complain so much about millennials at work. What work are you doing to make millennials better at work? You know, like every generation complains about the next generation. Yeah. But who's sitting there thinking, how do I harness something out of that next generation? People complain about the youth. People complain about mothers at work. People complain about all kinds of crap. But I'm like, what are you doing about it? And then they go, well, I'm not the prime minister. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not the CEO. I can't do this. I can't do that. So all I hear are a bag of excuses. Yeah. I don't care about that. Yeah. What can you do with what you have? Yeah. Tell me that. Like that's what we need in the workplace. That's the environment the next generation needs. Like stop complaining about millennials having a short attention span. Craft new KPIs that excite them. Yes. You know, like for me, like that should be like we need an overhaul in management training. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you, I mean, that's you, right? How do you apply that into your team? Like how do you make them understand that this can be the way and that they're okay to be vulnerable in that sense?
I try to like practice what I preach. And then when I fail, I apologize. You know, like I don't mean like just like in a half-assed way. I mean like really apologize. Yeah. You know, like I think if you want your team to show up,
Yeah.
and I don't mean show up like you got to work 25 hours a day, you know, like every single second you should respond on your work group chat within 2 seconds or you're slacking, you know, like I don't mean that, but I mean show up in terms of quality of work, in terms of duty of care, in terms of engagement.
Yeah.
The word engagement, we use it to measure social media statistics, but do you know the amount of wastage that goes into turnover and the amount of wastage that goes into employees who are disengaged at work, like that entire slum of productivity globally, not just in Malaysia, but in every country around the world, that's like completely untapped. And like for me, I'm passionate about what can we do about that, talking about it. Like in terms of applying to my team, it's like practicing. And then when I fail, saying that, look, I should have done better for this. And if there's a problem, I don't like to blame. I like people to have ownership. So I will ask, like, who was responsible for this? But then I go straight into like, okay, what can we do differently? Yeah. And if we have a team meeting and someone was put a bit more on the spot, what I tend to do is like still be quite open and honest about what needs to get done, because I don't want some people to feel like, how come she didn't call that out when it was her, right? Yeah. So I would do it in quite a gentle and professional way. Yeah. But afterwards, I would find just 2 minutes or 3 minutes to text that person to be like, hey, I know you're putting in the effort. I know this is hard for you. It's hard for us too when, you know, you're stumbling for that. But let's talk about how we can make it different. You know, can we change your meetings from Mondays, you know, if you have so much data to crunch, to a Tuesday so you have a bit more headspace? Yeah. Or like I'm currently struggling with someone on my team who's always coming to meetings and unprepared. So I'll ask questions and they won't know. So now I have this new format for this person that I said to her, could you email me everything? And then rather than, because we're always running over and then we're always like, let's say there's 10 topics. And we talk about all 6 topics and suddenly we're out of time. And then for some golden reason, those 4 topics we didn't talk about will be the one thing that we needed to decide that week, that day, the last hour, right? Yeah. So I said to her, okay, I'm going to change this up. I don't want to see you first. I want your work summary, your agenda first, and whatever attachments. I'm going to spend the time to read it. Then I'm going to answer yes, no, things that I can in email. And I'm going to say to you, when I meet you this week, we'll only talk about 2, 7, and 8.
Right.
And that will take us this amount of time.
Yep.
So like productivity, things that drain productivity and drains energy is the #1 killer in organizations. Yeah. And I think that there should be more out there, which is why I love Brene Brown so much and how she applies all this emotional, you know, human work stuff into organizations. Yes. I think there should be more out there like that educates millennials and that next generation about how to do this stuff. But also if you have older managers, you know, who are of a different generation, and it's not their fault, right? Yeah. They have so much experience we can tap into. So getting people to connect differently and work differently to increase productivity and build understanding, I think like I would love to see more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like one size fits all. People just work differently.
They do.
Right? So you got to just cater to what their needs. And as a leader, that's what you're doing, which I love.
I try to. I'm not perfect.
No, of course not.
And I can be a very hard boss. I know that. Yeah. And when I know...
you need to be.
When I know that I'm like that, I would actually say, like, I would text someone from my team if like I've grilled them a bit too much, like on, where's this, where's that, why don't you have this? And then I'll text them later and I'll be like, hey, sorry your boss is crazy demanding, but like, let me know if you need more time. So I would also just...
do the repair work.
Yeah, but I would be professional, but then afterwards, I always would like to make it human. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's so important, having that balance. Being a leader is not easy already, right? And there are things sometimes you just need to get shit done.
You do need to get shit done, but then people are humans. So we need to not forget we're not dealing with an algorithm, which is also what makes it so frustrating and so challenging, but in part also so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I'm not sure if this is from Brene Brown, but I wrote this down while I was doing this prepping for this episode, just to kind of wrap things up a little. You know, it says, being our messy, imperfect, authentic selves help us create a space where others can feel safe with their imperfect selves too.
Yeah.
And I think that is what you have been, you know, talking about, and you embody it. And I absolutely love that about you. And it's true, your vulnerability can be a gift to others.
Yeah.
And you are a gift to your team and the people around you. And I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Thank you. I think I am still learning how to be less hard on myself and less hard on the process. And I think what a lot of managers forget or leaders forget is the sooner you work on the things that are hardest to you and being less hard on yourself, the sooner you can be a better leader. Because and sometimes if I'm dealing with someone particularly difficult, I try to remember that this person's probably battling their own demons and their XYZ because of X, and then I think it's easier to just let things go and get on and be happy.
Yeah. Coming from a place, again, like it goes back to having a heart with compassion and empathy. I think it's so important to function with that. Because otherwise, I think we burn out.
Yes.
Constantly being guilty, constantly unhappy, dissatisfied. And I think that was something that I personally, experienced too. But, over time and, having to speak to people like you and being open to understanding a lot more about digging deeper into ourselves, I'm learning to also apply that and in becoming the person that I do want to become. Like I said, keyword is becoming. I'm not that person yet. Probably far from it, but the work here is just keep trying, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I guess being open about your process of becoming, because being open about that process is much, much, much more inspiring than the final product. And if you see even in commerce, right, people are so much more interested. Let's say if Dior launches a campaign, how was the bag made? Who made it? How long did it take? Who is this 70-year-old artisan in Italy? And you see these videos, like even in commerce, like people are far more interested in
the story,
how something came about and your process rather than just your success. Yeah.
And I noticed you do that with your brand. Especially this necklace that, by the way, Jenn just gifted me before we went on this episode. It's from your latest collection.
Golden. Yeah.
And tell us a little bit before we wrap it up, like what's the inspiration behind? I know there's always a story behind every of your collections. So what's Golden all about?
So Golden, we launched actually through February through to April. And Golden is about manifestations and mantras and about the woman who is going through different things and thriving despite it all. Yeah, so I think we actually designed that obviously last year through the pandemic. And so we wanted to take like classic silhouettes and different little symbolisms, like the necklace you've got there is a lock. And that's actually called the Trust Mantra necklace. And it's got a nice little mantra sort of hand scripted on.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the pieces that we make are all handmade. And all the products are manufactured using only BSCI certified factories. We only use recycled brass and 14 karat plated gold. Yeah.
Love it. And I said this to Jenn before, like if you guys see me on Instagram or like in person, I hardly ever wear much jewelry. And for the past year, your brand was the first one that got me starting.
Oh,
again.
Thank you.
No, really, really. Not because she's, the founder or she's my friend, but it's the hard truth.
Thanks, babe.
During your pop-up, that was the first time I bought and started wearing the hoop earrings that I've been wearing for my head over heels, like poster photos. Yeah, that was my first one.
Right.
So, and I love your products, not just because it's, there's just so much love and thought being put into it.
Thank you.
And I think it goes to show, because it comes from you and your heart.
Yeah, and my team.
Oh, yes, of
my
course.
entire team. Yeah. I think we just love creating things for real women, like real people, like you.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go, of course, one piece of advice you would give to younger Jenn, and of course the young women who are listening right now.
Okay. What would I say?
Yourself. You see
to
her
myself.
right now.
Right.
Sitting across you. What would you tell her?
I would say start early just loving all of you. Like really, really loving all of yourself. Like how you look, how you think, how you feel. The sooner you make peace with yourself and who you are and embrace every single corner of yourself, the sooner you would live your best life and be able to do all these things that we just talked about, like speak your truth. And I think I feel that even in my team, like every single person can be such a gift to the people around them and to themselves. And the sooner you really just embrace all of yourself, the sooner you'll just be happier. Yeah.
I love that. And with that, we wrap up our episode with Jenn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're just gonna light up every room you walk in. Oh my gosh, we need to have more coffee dates. Really. I think I need more energy from you. But really, for those of you who may have just met Jenn on this episode for the very first time, how can they find you?
Oh, so you guys can find me on Instagram, and my username is Jenn Low, JENNLOW.WCO.
And of course, yeah, her brand is Wanderlust Co. Guys, go check it out. One of my favorites, not just locally made, right? And it's all around the world, being worn by Kendall Jenner, Selena Gomez. I've said this again, but you guys go check it out. But yes, till then, guys, like I always say, don't forget to fall head over heels with yourself first and always. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode that we had today, because I think there's a lot for you to start, letting it sink in and process. And hopefully you be able to embody it just like how Jenn did as well. Yep.
Sometimes.
Not all the time. We're not perfect,
Not all
but
the time.
you get the picture. You know where we're coming from. But yes, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.